Sunweb was aanwezig bij de persconferentie van het ministerie van Financiën en Planning. Tijdens deze bijeenkomst stond de negende en tevens laatste review van de IMF-missie centraal. Miss Anna Gusina, IMF-mission chief, gaf aan dat het een genoegen was om met Suriname samen te werken. Ze is de laatste 2 jaren de mission chief geweest en benadrukte dat Suriname zich nu op een kritisch moment bevindt.
Just wanted to say from the start what a pleasure it has been to work with Suriname. I've been the mission chief for the last 2 years. We're approaching a critical milestone. If this review is completed successfully, it would be the first program that Suriname would have completed with the IMF. And I believe it would set Suriname up for success in the future. A lot has been accomplished in this last 2 years, and it's not just the achievement of the IMF or the Ministry of Finance and the Central Bank, but it is a joint achievement of the Surinamese people, civil society, business communities, other international partners and donors, and also members of the parliament, because they pushed through very important legislative amendments. Also, the unions played an important role in this journey. Altogether, a lot has been achieved through this teamwork and collaboration and feedback that they were providing to us, as well as common people with whom we interacted, whether we were coming to the interior to see the villages or restaurants where we had amazing Surinamese food, people who have served us at the hotel, drivers who took us all around Suriname. I am very impressed with how far Suriname has come in such a short span of time. When the program started, inflation was around 60%, now it's 10% year on year. International reserves were very, very low at the central bank. Now they're comfortable, so the central bank has been strengthened, which is important to run a prudent monetary policy. International bond spreads, which is the cost of capital for the government if it were to borrow internationally, are at historic lows right now. Credit rating agencies have upgraded Suriname's credit rating. Public debt to GDP used to be 148% of GDP. Now it's below 90. Suriname has gained a lot of international respect as a result of this work. We're not there yet. What has been achieved in terms of macroeconomic stability is impressive, but the sustainability of this macroeconomic situation critically depends on what happens next. What happens when the IMF is no longer there? I really hope that all parties internalize this message. There is no such thing as free lunch. Economists have this expression. For every action, there is a reaction. If discipline is maintained, Suriname's macroeconomic stability will be maintained. If we let go of fiscal discipline, if we start spending uncontrollably, the population will feel it immediately through higher inflation. So this is the reason why it is important to keep the reform momentum going. It is important not to take steps backwards, so that the gains that have been made can be crystallized to form the foundation of what is to come. IMF program, when we come, we're firefighters. We know we cannot achieve everything. We want to achieve macroeconomic stability, fiscal sustainability, debt sustainability. The reason why that is important, when a debt to GDP ratio is very high, it means that all of government resources are used to pay interest on its obligations, with very little left to pay salaries, to invest in infrastructure, and to maintain a level of service. So to the extent possible, it is important to maintain fiscal and debt sustainability going forward. We have worked very hard with the government on trying to invest in capacity building. IMF and other development partners have also invested in this capacity development, strengthening institutions, showing what can be done, for example, to get better tax revenues. And I'm happy to say that tax revenues are coming in line with expectations. Yes, there could be some other advancements, but the collections have been good. So the reforms that have been implemented, such as introduction of the value-added tax, replacing the sales tax that you had before, is yielding positive results. The quality of expenditure has also improved, and the expenditure became more pro-poor. I know that in the beginning of the program, the government struggled to meet the social spending benchmark. But over the last year, in 2024, the amount of money government spends on social assistance programs has been even above our expectations. So that is very good news. All those targets were met. Yes, a lot could be done to make sure that the spending is efficient, effective at reducing poverty and reaching people in all areas of the country, including in the interior region where the poverty is much higher. But we have seen the improvement. In fact, in percent of GDP terms, the spending on the 6 sector cash transfer programs has doubled. It went from 1.5% of GDP to about 3.5% of GDP now. So that is an impressive achievement. Even when the IMF program is ending, our engagement with Suriname does not stop. I don't know if people fully realize that, but you are IMF. You are one of our 190 member countries. And IMF, in a way, is pooling resources from everybody so that when a member country gets into trouble, we're in a position to help it. So you are the IMF. I wanted to thank everybody for the incredible collaboration that you have demonstrated with us. Our closest counterparts are, of course, the Central Bank and Ministry of Finance, but other ministries have also played an important role. I come from this experience wiser, and I also come from this experience with great love and appreciation. You are beautiful people. Stay united in the coming months. Don't let politicians divide you.
Tijdens de vragenronde werden er vragen aan Ms. Anna Gusina gesteld.
Suriname is at a crossroad at the moment with the upcoming elections. Will IMF still hold office and talk with possibly the new government after the elections? The message that the IMF has given is very clear. Good leaders and good governance is needed to keep on track to achieve true stability. Have you seen good governance with this government? And do you think that IMF should have been a bit more thorough in demanding better governance from Suriname? Because it took some time to implement certain criteria, like the increase of social spending, as an example. That is for the IMF speakers.
That is? Do you know?
For the minister.
Oh.
Dat doe je dan later.
Good morning. There was mention of good arrangements that have been made to be implemented between now and March, the finalization of the last review, the final review. And so I would like to know what these arrangements contain. Also, it looks like we are already taking an advance on the amazing wealth that is coming. Also, we see on the party political stages promises or being made for that might lead to increasing expenditure by the government. I'd like to also know your opinion on that, both the minister and Miss Anna, as we call you here.
Miss Anna? Yes.
Thank you very much for these questions, and I also forgot to mention the role that the press has helped. You have helped a lot, both with accountability, governance. This is a big part of your job, so thank you for that. On what happens with the elections, after the elections, our Reserve office will stay open. Charles is able to answer any questions, to brainstorm. His door is open anytime. He lives in Suriname. He has also excellent office staff that are also available to help. And even if there is no program request, we will maintain our presence in the country. Each member state undergoes Article 4 review every year. So even in the absence of the program, we will come back to do this review. The last one we did back in the fall. On governance, I have seen tangible improvement during even the 2 years that I was the mission chief. And I have also seen how the ownership of the program deepened. In the beginning, when I first started, there were lots of some hesitation and or statement that we're doing it because the IMF told us to do that. It's very different now. We're doing it because it's the right thing to do. So I have seen the language, how it has changed, and when it takes a while to build trust. We did not expect it to be instantaneous. It took a while to build this kind of relationship of collaboration where we are really truly one team, which is natural. You see it in all your day-to-day relationships. It takes a while to build that. And IMF in many countries comes with all this garbage, baggage that it's the enemy. It's trying to impose austerity. So it's natural to feel distrust in the beginning when you come into the program. We're very happy with that. We're over that hump. And regardless of what happens after the elections, to the extent that the technical people are staying in place, the stronger governance will continue. The stronger relationship with the IMF will continue. So time doesn't have to be wasted on building the trust again. As I mentioned before, we were putting out fires. We needed to stabilize macroeconomic situation. That was priority number one. Building good governance, it's like remodeling the kitchen where everything is nice and shiny and new and functioning well. But when the house is on fire, your priority to put out the fire. And right now, when we have stabilized macroeconomic situation, a lot of the attention has shifted towards better governance. Just to give you one example, the Anti-Corruption Commission was established during this program. It took a while to get it operational. We provided a lot of capacity development support to draft legislation in line with best practices. One is AML-CFT legislation, which was very important, procurement law that identifies beneficial owner information, so everybody knows who benefits from government contracts. So that's an important governance anti-corruption element. And finally, in December, we had a technical assistance mission working together with the Anti-Corruption Commission, Ministry of Justice, on drafting the law on the assets and income declaration of politically exposed persons. we're reviewing the draft right now, so are other parties, but our hope is that that draft legislation will be submitted to the Council of Ministers in the near term. Especially that the oil wealth is coming. This part of legislation is super important, and as a society, as voters, you should demand that it be enacted and implemented, because getting the law done is one thing, getting implementation is the second step, which is not possible without the law in place, but having the law is not sufficient. You have to have proper implementation. So that asset and income declaration is not just something you put in an envelope with a notary public. It has to be published. Okay? That promotes government transparency, accountability. Anybody who holds a political office or who is in a position of authority should declare their assets and incomes. Yes, you can take out confidential information, account numbers, all that, but there should be a publication and verification, if needed, of those statements, because no one should enrich themselves at the expense of public purse. So that's where, yes, I wish that those governance reforms took place faster, but until you had macroeconomic stability, and given that the capacity is limited and where you need to focus your attention, it was not possible to do it all and do it quickly. But I see positive steps in the right direction. On taking advances on the oil wealth, I have expressed my position clearly last time. I don't believe it's a good practice. You should not spend before those resources materialize. It's important for the people to be patient. There's lots of risks. What happens to the oil price? What if there are delays in development? And I understand that there are huge development needs in the country. We're not, just coming, staying at the hotel and leaving. We're walking around in the community. We see the state of infrastructure. We talk to our local office staff who have kids in schools. We know what is happening in schools. We know what is happening in the healthcare sector. Those are priorities. They have to be budgeted for within the given resource envelope. And this is where the government expenditure should focus on. Not on any flashy new buildings, projects. The priority is the people. This is the most precious resource Suriname has. Not oil, not minerals, it's people. So that's where the investment should take place, health and education. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anna. Amanda, nog een vraag voor de minister?
There you go. This is a follow-up question for Ms. Anna at the moment, if you permit.
Yes.
You said one of the criteria is the law of wat is het publiceren van a declaration of income from politicians. Asset and income law, but it is pushed back to the next year, or no, this year, later. Well, not postponed. It postponed until after the elections. Is that going to be a problem for IMF? Because, as you said, you wished it had taken place faster and implemented faster. But is it going to be an issue?
There was some miscommunication by the government. What they had in mind is a state decree and this assets and income declaration inside the envelope left with the notary public and kept confidential. This is not what we had in mind. So we asked the government, let's please do it correctly through the legal amendment, which will outlast any administration, and to have an amendment of the law which would allow for the publication of such information, because your current legal framework does not allow for that. The confidentiality of this information supersedes it. So in order to allow for that, you need to amend the law. Amending the law is not a simple process. It has to be drafted well, It has to be drafted keeping local context in mind, but it had to be drafted in line with international best practices. So this is where we provided the support, so that what is put in place is in line with international best practices, and not this alternative way where nobody knows that the person might be stealing money until that person is caught. If you have that public information available, you are able to monitor it, and it's not IMF will be monitoring. You as a society will be monitoring. What's the starting position of this individual, what is his income, and where they end up, and ask relevant questions.